Does a branding agency really do? Today I'm going to talk about what we do as a branding agency, and I'm going to give you some more detailed information on what we offer and what most people think it is and what it actually is. So most people think branding is just a logo, something that you can quickly slap up and make within an hour on Canva or an app or something, but it's not. It's actually how your business is perceived and how you want it to be portrayed in the open world. I'm going to actually break down everything a little bit more about what you'd actually get in a brand package and what branding is. So the first thing that I want to talk about is understanding your business. So what you need to figure out first is who you're targeting, what your business does, and where you sit in the market. So what we tend to do is send out a brand questionnaire to our clients when they first approach us, and they go ahead, and we'll ask them to answer some questions about the businesses. So it's also things like what your competitors look like and what makes you different. So it is really about, you need to understand like who you're actually looking to sort of target and who you're trying to attract and what that type of person is. So for us, for example, we are looking at business owners, we're looking at small and medium businesses, and sometimes large. And for people that are trying to put themselves out there and try to brand the business and bring everything together. So a lot of the time we will sort of get a business come to us who will basically want branding. They don't really know exactly who they are, but they have an idea. But sometimes it can be quite obvious as to who they actually are. And that questionnaire that we actually hand out allows the client to sort of put it down, pen to paper, and also to understand what is going on in their business. So number 2 is positioning. So are you a premium business, a mid-range, or a budget? Like I said before, who you were trying to attract and how do you want to be perceived? Are you, an ultra luxury brand? So example, maybe if like you're an interior design studio, then your sort of audience is going to be somebody that has money, who is looking to spend quite a lot and invest back into their own, say, property or their business if they're redoing the interior on there. How you want to be perceived. So for example, how do people look at you when you look at something like McDonald's? It's quick, it's easy, it's budget, but they do have a really, really strong brand. Or if you're looking at something like Aloe, where they're sort of like medium to high range, that the clothes are going to be quite expensive, but they are high quality, but they're not absolutely bank breaking, or you're not spending thousands of pounds on a t-shirt or something like that, but they are not in your sort of H&M, Zara budget, which can be quite a bit lower. So what you need to do really is set the direction before we actually come to the design. So this is, like I said, what our brand questionnaire does. It allows us to understand the business, see where you want to go in the future and what your goals are, and also think about competitors, about your business goals basically. So once we've done that, we'll actually look into the more detail of the visual identity. So we're looking at logo, the logo itself and the variations of the logo. So a lot of people will say, we like having an icon, or we like it just to be a monogram of like 2 letters, but we also want the long worded visual, or we want like a different lockup. So you could have like 3 lockups, for example. You could have like a full lockup where it's got the text, the icon, it's got maybe some smaller text underneath, like a subheading, and then you've also got, or a slogan. Then you could have your monogram, so you could have like 2 letters, say if it was like NM or something like that, and how you'd work that together. And then you'd also have the icon as well, or just the text on its own. So you've got those 3 variations, and they can just be applied as to anywhere you want them to be. The next thing would also be color palette. So obviously this is an obvious one. So color can be very, very important, and a lot of people have got my notes here, a lot of people have no knowledge with color. They might just like it, personal preference, but there is actually a color psychology. So for example, banks use blue, majority of them do because it's trust, whereas something like brighter colors may seem it to be a bit more of a playful brand, where your neutrals could be quite more luxury or professional sort of business. So there is a difference in why and what we do when we choose color, and it's quite important. I actually sometimes do research through books and stuff still, and there are some books that we use. There is one called Palette Perfect, which I will recommend. I'll just put it here, and then also I think they've got a second book as well, so it's definitely worth looking at. And there is like websites like Adobe Color, and various other sort of, obviously Pinterest and things like that, which is really, really good to look at. So we look at that, and then obviously moving on to typography, that is a very, very important. So, obviously there's serif, sans serif, there's mix, there's script, there's loads and loads of different fonts and typefaces. And what we try to do is either look at different type foundries, which there are some really amazing ones out there, or we will look at some of your, more basic or sort of more open accessible fonts in Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts and so on. So that's really important. The overall look and feel is also really important to look at, and then making everything consistent across the board, which is something that people don't do when they just have a logo. So it's about making sure that all of the touch points move, which brings me on to the next sort of section of this video, which is creating a system. So it's not just a logo, so it's how it works across your website, social media, your ads, your print, your menus, your signage, and making sure everything looks like one brand. And this is where hiring a design agency is important, because they understand the touch points and what actually is important. If somebody sees something, say on Instagram, then they inquire, they go to the website, and then when they actually turn up to the business, they see the signage, there's some print, and they may obviously take photos and then tag the social media accounts, and then it sort of brings itself back. So it's really, really important to do that. We do also offer brand guidelines, which some businesses do ask us for. So say if you're bringing the designs internally afterwards and you've got like an in-house team, or you want to like sort of follow guides or anything that you can hand over to suppliers, then basically the brand guidelines will allow us to tell that person who's using it how to use the logo properly, the colors, the fonts, the image style and layout, and keeps everything consistent long term. So it's really, really important that people are following that. Obviously we know that things develop and change over time. People do 6 years down the line want to sort of touch things up, and you can either do like a brand refresh, which is something that we do offer as well, or you can sort of just develop that brand and add something in maybe in the future. We can obviously work with you on that as well. So applying the brand is down to the website design. So like I said before, you want to apply it in all elements and making sure that it runs across the board. So a website must feel the same as the brand, and they work together essentially. So for example, our brand, I will admit a few years ago it was a bit messy, and we tidied it up about 3 years ago. We brought in a new website, and we sort of had an idea of how clean we wanted it to feel, and obviously it's just applying that across every single part. So our social media posts will use the same typefaces on certain posts, or if we're using fonts and things in graphics, we'll also use that. So it's important to do that. So the question at the end really is what you're really paying for. So you're paying for clarity and direction, you're paying for a professional and consistent look, you're paying to build trust with customers and stand out from competitors. So you're actually investing into the business, and it is a big investment. And there is a lot of businesses who will thrive and go a lot further once the brand's been solidified, whereas if you sort of just created a makeshift sort of logo, then that's obviously something that isn't going to sort of portray to your customer that you've actually invested into your own brand. And why would they invest into it if you're not going to invest it into yourself? So if your branding feels off, it is worth reviewing. And when branding is right, everything else becomes easier, because you sort of know exactly what you need to look like and what you need to feel like and so on. So whether that be internal documentation or documentation that you're sending out or an email signature or anything like that, it all needs to feel the same across the board, and it shows that you know exactly who you are and what you're about. And that's what we do here at Sees Design. So if you're interested in branding services, please get in contact or visit our website at seesdesign.co.uk.